I'm very sorry. This is a little bit incorrect to just arrive here and give a talk. I arranged bad my time, and I'm sorry for that. Also, I will not do what I promised here in abstract. My task will be very simple to evoke or to remind you for one text which is possible to find online, the text of Leo Strauss from 1941, text which is, I think, probably first good thematization of nihilism in one context which we can find today in actual situation. That could be some kind of negative moment. The context is that 41 Strauss was delivered February 26th. This lecture, the name of this lecture is German Nihilism, and on New School for Social Research in New York. Before that, he already had one text in Syracuse one year ago, where he mentioned several ideas about position of Germany in that time and controversial or antagonism between Germany and we can say England, France, and democratic liberal world. You can say like this. This text is never translated in German. This text is written in English. We don't know, as we know, all people arrived from Germany had always the problem with English in that period of time, and we don't know. This text is just found and published in interpretation spring 1999. Then published, I have here two editions in Italian and in French. It means text is, we can say, famous and maybe, but complicated. And I like to just put several descriptions of Strauss's description, put it aside, because this it's not important for this subject. We can say like this. But anyway, first in this lecture in Syracuse, 27 April 40. The lecture, the name of the lecture was "The Living Issues of German Post-War Philosophy." He explicitly mentioned that German are less civilized than English or French. This is his thesis, and also in this text. And I'd like to put all of this aside because there are many descriptions like this. Germans are less citizens and less free citizens than English people or French people. His thesis in 40, in 41, and in 43, because there are many texts. Here in Italian, several of them are translated. In French is just this one, important for us. He said that, well, liberal democracy is his principal thesis is liberal democracy. Well, that means the Nazism or communism is on the other side. Well, what we can find in this text, main definition of nihilism is that the first of all, this is German nihilism, but he's describing this, how to say, genesis of this idea in Germany, in German philosophy, but not just in philosophy, because he's reading all the time Jünger. And principal idea is that the nihilism is above all the rejection of the principles, this is quote, the rejection of the principles of civilization as such. This is, well, and the main subject and object of this idea is Germany. Germany, not just in that time, this is important, but Germany through the he found not Nietzsche's Germany, but he found this in some kind of unsuccessful idealistic philosophy, German idealistic philosophy. Well, when I'm before that, when I see this word nihilism, for me this is a little bit some kind of password for epochal philosophy, etc., or epochal for time, etc. I can't do nothing with this. I tried always to translate this word or this protocol in some kind of acts or repertoire of acts and negative acts. That's why negative moment. And the Strauss is doing the same thing. He's trying to okay, this is not important, just the subject. In that case, Germany or German people or Nazi people, Nazism. Well, but he's also trying to translate that behind, not just because he's starting the text with this vele nihil, to will the nothing. I think Professor Barbarić had the same title, and we can say that this is main password of nihilism. He's trying to recognize the act of we can translate it with negative act or negative action or nullifying act or evil act or bad acts, etc. This behind this idea of nihilism, we have this, here this text is translated first. This is lecture, but in the same time there is a small Strauss how to say, abstract or small 20 phrases who described his principal idea. And I will count several of them and try to recognize or to make some kind of distinction and find, I think, something important. Well, okay, nihilism is defined as a rejection of the principle of civilization as such. German nihilism rejects the principles of civilization as such in favor of war and of warlike ideals. This is the most important jump, that the nihilism implies always militarism. German nihilism is radicalized form of German militarism. And then, very important, also we can say, description suggestion that the roots of German militarism is moralism. That means in nihilism always we have some kind of moral mechanism, morality or pseudo-morality, we can say, pushes all the time this negation, this transformation of negativity in militarism, in war, in destruction, we can say. Then from his perspective, from United States, he see position of Nazism or position of German nihilism is in a context of Anglo-German war. Anglo-German war for him in that period of time, and for him this is war about the principles. Then maybe still something surprised in this text, that the German nihilism is always connected with the young atheist. That means nihilism is always the thing of the young people, not old people. And this affinity of youth to nihilism and this nihilistic consequences of the nihilistic consequences of the emancipation of youth. Youth is to be nihilist means to be young. This is also something special in this text. Beside this romantic idea, carriage idea, always he's combining all the time with several Junger's quotes. Important is that the German nihilism is related to the reaction to the modern ideal, which is characteristic of German idealist philosophy, morality, and that morality of self-sacrifice and self-denial versus morality of self-interest. That means self-sacrifice, Aufopferung, and self-denial versus morality of self-interest. Courage is the only non-utilitarian virtue. Well, he's describing Germans' hate to modernism, which is English in origin, with one idea that Nazism is combining pre-modern ideal with this, we can say, this antagonism to a liberal world. I quote, "The German tradition is a tradition of criticism of the modern ideal, while the English found a working amalgamation of the modern ideal with the classical ideal. The Germans overemphasized the break in the tradition so much, and they were ultimately led from the rejection of modern civilization to the rejection of the principles of civilization as such to nihilism." Okay, if we forget all this context and Strauss' idea of this antagonism between two words, antagonism, because in that period of time he has. You remember that he wanted recommendation from Carl Schmitt just 10 years ago, before 33, and he had obsessions in this time with Spengler, Schmitt, Heidegger, etc. His principal, we can say, idea is that idea of civilization of citizen. He said, okay, he is differentiating civilization and culture. It's not the culture, Germany is not the problem. The Germany is culture, but the citizen, the free citizen. And for him, civilization designates, I quote, at once the process of making man a citizen and not a slave, an inhabitant of cities and not a rustic, a lover of peace and not of war, a polite being and not a ruffian. Well, this is, we can say, most important that we have this antagonism between free citizen and nihilist. This is one thing, and second thing, this is not jump. This is just normal consequences or replication of nihilist. This is always a militarism or heroic nihilism, and brilliant description of war. War is a destructive business. War is a destructive business. If we now put all of this in our context, we will see that this now, as you know, we have, I think, this is all. 2 months ago, I remember we have in Ukraine 58 factories for drone, and war is destructive business. Well, this is very good description of for example, this intervention of this war. Then he's trying all the time to differentiate war as a destructive business or war as a something desirable in itself, with idea of just or unjust war, or distinction between just or unjust wars, which we mentioned today that exist, you know, wars of defense and wars of aggressions, etc., which is characteristic of today thinking of the war, and not just today. That means here in nihilism, destruction or war or militarism is value as such, contrary to liberal, we can say liberal world, where we have all the time distinction between just and unjust wars, etc. He mentioned here, I think that this text could be some kind of manifest of nihilism if we forget this context, if we forget this clash of civilization, clash of on one side Germany, on the other liberal world, and try to think just this construction of destruction. In this text, we can find also, well, that's why I think that this text could be, or this idea of nihilism is very actual, not just because, I don't know, Wendy Brown wrote the book about nihilism, or we have several conferences. I know for one about Russian nihilism in Paris. They are making this conference. The people who just arrived from Russia, and they are against the regime there. Not just this, but also because of very interesting passage where Strauss compares Germany with Slavs. In that passage he said that Slavonic nations, I quote, do not appear to be as militaristic as are the Germans. In his head, Slavonic nations is still younger than Germans, but anyway, against the civilization, against the Western civilization. Well, and in that case, if we, for example, we have a huge tradition in Russia, and we can easily describe it as a nihilistic tradition, and the substance of this tradition could be nihilism. I don't know if it is good to do this and to mention Leo Strauss' text on that way, but I'm just trying to understand his situation. He recognized the bad acts, evil acts. He recognized this Nazi protocol, and he's trying to understand this, explain, and connect these two prospects, nihilism and militarism. This situation, I heard, I don't know, 1 month ago, I was in Russia, and during the evening, I saw how Putin is trying all the time to argument. How is it possible that the president of Ukraine is Jew, and in the same time he's doing the intervention or war against Nazism? That means this is not just a description of enemy as unjust enemy. In that case, Nazi is unjust enemy, and you have in that case right to destroy this kind of enemy. But this is just idea to justify militarism, to justify this desire to destruction and to destruct. The same thing we have today in the Welt. You have conversation with Benjamin Netanyahu, and the same thing he mentioned here that Bundeskanzler Olaf Scholz war in Israel und hat genau das Richtige gesagt. Sagte, die Hamas seien die neue Nazis. Ich bin froh, dass die großen politischen Parteien in Deutschland zu uns stehen und diese Aussage teilen. To name enemy as Nazi, of course, is not the same thing as I don't know, in 40 in New York from different perspective, etc., etc. But anyway, we can see the logic and connection between the enemy, how to name enemy, and how to destroy the enemy. In that case, we have with these two positions. With this strange combination, we can say that that could be maybe nihilism. Well, that's it. Thank you. Should I stay or?
You can sit here. You can sit here.
After.
Yeah. No. You can sit here.
No.
Yeah. Because so. Before moving on to the final debate, I think I would like to, of course, offer the opportunity for everyone to discuss what Professor Bojanić has attempted to unveil through a reading of Leo Strauss's text. So please, if anyone has any comments or questions, please.
So, thank you for your lecture. I think we must take in account that Leo was one of the most important political philosophers in 20th century, and so that these notes on nihilism are very important also to see the whole, the whole presentation of political opinions. You have mentioned Junger, and we can mention other who have dealt with this politics in 20th century that we could describe as nihilistic. And I'd like to ask you if at a certain point, is this the consequence that the politics in 20th century enground the nihilistic intention provide? This is, I think, could we reflect with Strauss here?
Intention, nihilistic intention.
Yeah, that you don't have the opinions who are not involved in some way nihilistic attitude, and this is the maybe this is the problem of political philosophy in 20th century.
He said, nihilism is a rejection of the principles of the civilization as such. A nihilist is then the man who knows the principles of civilization, if only in a superficial way. Who knows in italic. A merely uncivilized man, a savage, is not a nihilist. This is the difference between, I don't know, Caesar and Hitler, who otherwise have the characteristic qualities of the perfect barbarian, arrogance and cruelty. Barbarian, that means arrogance and cruelty in common. Well, the Roman soldier who disturbed the circles of Archimedes was not a nihilist, but just a soldier. I said civilization and not culture. For I have noticed that many nihilists are great lovers of culture, as distinguished form as opposed to civilization. Besides, the term culture lives in undetermined what the thing is which is to be cultivated, whereas the term civilization designates at once the process of making a man a citizen and not a slave, etc. We can find here in Strauss, that's it will be good to put aside this some kind of resentment, because he's angry in New York in that period of time, and this is series of the texts, and these texts are parallelly, simultaneously he has correspondence with Karl Löwit all the time, and they are Löwitis at that time in Japan, and as you know, they are both disciples of Heidegger. If we clean this text or this idea, I think we will have just this this tension between nihilism, militarism, destruction, and that's it. On one side, and on the other side, because he mentioned he read Popper, he mentioned open society and closed society here in text, and for me, important is this idea that the nihilists are young people, always. In that period of time also young people. And this moral idea that that we have in Putin, that we have in everywhere. Moral is the motor of destruction always.
Dr. Nijma.
Your speech on nihilism were related to German nihilism somehow.
Yeah.
Could you do a comparison between German and the, let's say, the 19th century of Russian nihilism? Short one.
Yeah, I don't know well, because I met one she's a daughter of Podoroga, Valery Podoroga, who was one of the best Russian philosopher, and she's writing and she's preparing the conference of Russian nihilism, etc. Russian nihilism, you can find it into, remember Dostoevsky, you have many ideas. Tolstoy, Max Weber, in Wendy Brown's book, in Introduction, Weber quotes several Tolstoy's idea, which is completely nihilistic. There is some good aspect in nihilism. This is change. How to change something.
Of revolution already.
Yes, not just revolution. You can find in Carl Schmitt, in Jünger, you can find this idea to change the world, in Spengler to do something. You can find some kind of enthusiasm, which is not destructive as such. But if you have this context with the war, with Nazism, then immediately, for example, today, in the most important theater of arguments for just or unjust war we can find today in Israel. Israel thinkers on war, about the war, are very competitive in the last 40 years. That means this is not simple.
And they elaborated a little bit. When we had a war in Syria, the accusation of the regime was they were Islamic, extremists. From Israel's point of view, they cope two notions. They are Arab extremists and also a little bit of Nazis, as you mentioned, via Scholz and the others. So they doubled the Hamas, which is now consisted of two different ideologies or whatever. From that point of view, yeah, it's a new trend.
Yes, I'm saying that we have best theoreticians of just war today in Israel. That means that this war, this intervention we have today, for example, one of the best philosopher, Asa Kasher, who is the editor of philosophy journal, important journal Philosophy, he wrote ethical codex for the Israel army. The philosophers or thinkers of war are involved in army, and I think this is irresponsible to think that this army is without rules, etc., etc. This army is most trained and most how to say the soldiers are they very good know what does it mean just or unjust use of force.
They're using the leaflets to announce that certain building would be racketing in Gaza. It's also this part. Yeah, I mean it could be cynical, but
yeah, could be cynical. You know, I'm philosopher. I'm trying to understand the text and what is the behind of intervention. I can say, contrary for Russian army, that we could not find good history of justifications of violence or force in their in army in the last 40 years in Russia, but in Israel it's different thing.
Okay, thanks.
If there are no more questions for Professor Bojanić, I would like to thank you for your lecture.
Thank you.
No, I think we shall we just move on to the, or do we make a short pause? We have, no, just move on?
Yeah.
So then, no coffee break. So unfortunately, Professor Ion Copoeiro could not be with us to deliver his lecture. So let us move on to the final act of this 3-day conference, which has brought us many intriguing thoughts with regards to the question of what contemporary nihilism on the one hand means, and what it does, in the sense of its quite some of its also quite concrete, less abstract consequences. Since this is a Congress of the International Center of Studies on Contemporary Nihilism, I would like to invite both co-directors who are here with us, Professor Fabris and Professor Alfredo Rocha de la Torre, to perhaps at least attempt to formulate some, let's say, preliminary thoughts on what you of course, the conversation about what has been discussed here will continue. Hopefully, also when the publication will, if it comes to be, it will continue with each of us at home or another occasion. But at least a preliminary assessment of what you think, sort of like, we can't talk of results or achievements of such a conference, but we can talk of initiatives of stimulative ideas that have been discussed. And so please make.
No, thank you very much. I think we have made in these days a real experience of a very rich common work. This is the gift. It's not easy not to work together in the same direction, in the differences of our position, but in the same direction. In the various contributes we have heard, in fact, we explored the topic of contemporary nihilism from for example, an historical point of view with important references to Nietzsche, to Heidegger. We discussed the very concept of nihilism in the actual situation in our time, in its leveling consequences, in its connection with technologies, with environmental disaster, in the difficult relationship among cultures, up to discussing aspects of contemporary international politics we have heard now. Yes, I think that the high level of reports and discussion made it clear how the category of nihilism can really help us understand the present situation and confront it from both a theoretical and, above all, an ethical viewpoint. We must therefore be satisfied, I think. So should be satisfied Thomas Zalachnik and Dan Komel, who generously organized this conference, and Manca Ericic and Andrej Bozic, who coordinated our meeting. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart to all of them. Above all, however, all those who belong to CeNic, the Center of Studies on Contemporary Nihilism, must be satisfied. CeNic, as you know, is an international network of researchers and scholars working on various aspects of contemporary nihilism from a philosophical perspective. The results of their research are normally published in 3 international journals: Phenomena, Cuestiones Filosóficas, and Teoria, my review. Also, the papers from this conference will also be published soon on them, on the reviews or on a band, incident band, in a single book. I don't know, but they will publish it. Okay. But yes, it's a good news, of course. It remains something from this occasion to discuss together. Not only a visual testimony, but also a paper testimony. But we have not finished. It is the news. Our work continues from August the 1st to 8th, 2024, the 25th World Congress of Philosophy will be held in Rome. You are all invited, of course, but during this World Conference, there will be a CeNic panel within the World Conference, a CeNic panel that we are organizing with Alfredo. This occasion will be the 3rd conference of our nihilism research network. The first in Pisa 4-5 years ago because of the COVID emergency. The second is now, the third next year in Rome. So I gave you an appointment in Rome next August. Thank you again for your participation and see you soon. I don't know if Alfredo has something to say. Yes.
I mean, if your health allows you, if you're not too. Please.
Just do it.
Nur vielen Dank für Ihre Teilnahme und für Ihre interessante Vorträge. Glaube ich, dass diese Tagung sehr interessant und sehr erfolgreich war. Und sehen wir uns in Roma in ungefähr einem Jahr. Danke sehr.
And perhaps Professor Komel, the main organizer, the spiritus science of the Kongress, the Ljubljana part of the Kongress.
I have only questions. I have a little bit to say, but I have a lot of questions, and I stopped to writing in my notebook because it will be too many questions, and then I have to sleep during the night. These are the philosophical problems, but I like to thank all of you that participating here in this day, and I think the discussion were very inspirative. And especially I like to thank once again to my colleagues on the Institute, Nove, Revije. We are just small institute, and we are trying to organize some discussion, humanistic discussion, not only the philosophical discussion, but also historical, literary discussion, and so on. And I'd like to thank Tomáš for our support, then to Mira, who helped me to manage this abstract and then to Andrei and Mansa, who help us during these days with moderation, and also our technical support, Giga, and all of you. Eva, yeah, you've been here. I also would to come to Rome, and but I have some orthopedic problems, and I think it will be some way dangerous for me to go. I don't know, but I support this idea, and I hope you will publish also the next number of theoria on the war and nihilism. That was the issue that we are discussing after the lecture of Professor Bojanić. So we come to the war. And you are so kind of devil spirit. So thank you to all of you again.